Hello guys and welcome back. In this episode is a very nostalgic one. We're going to be talking about the 12 rules for your 20s as a man, things that you need to know. Now I'm just over 28 years old, so I think although I'm not completed my 20s yet, I think I'm in a good position to kind of give some decent advice on what you should do. You know, I've been in my 20s for 8 and a bit years now, out of 10 as a total. So I think I've figured out this game of your 20s quite well. You know, and I believe in the next year and a bit, I think everything will come together perfectly. I'm really looking forward to being 30. I'm in no rush, of course, but I'm really looking forward to being 30 because, as you guys know, I'm a big advocate of the male advantage at 36 and beyond. I feel like I'm only getting better with time. I think every guy feels like that who works on themselves. So here are 12 things that every guy should there are rules for when you're in your 20s, you know, regardless of what age you are in your 20s. But if you're the early end of your 20s, then this is really going to help you. So number one, start as early as possible. What I mean by that is if you have any plans, any ideas, anything that you want to accomplish, a business you want to start investing, you want to start saving your money to invest in property, the earlier you do this, the better. Like, I kick myself that I didn't start when I was 14 doing everything that I'm doing now, because I feel like 14, 16, anything like that, I could have easily have done what I'm doing now. Maybe not on the same scale, but I could have made a start and just at least, you know, built up the skill set or failed a lot quicker so that I could learn a lot quicker, if that makes sense. So just starting as early as possible. So the guys I started a business, my first ever business, at 21 years old. About 21 years old. And I got a giant head start on most people. You know, the average business owner doesn't start a business till, I think they're in their mid-30s. You know, that's the average age of a startup owner, I think, might actually be something like 42 years old. Have a look, guys. But starting at 21 and having an idea to go down that route is unbelievable. But I still wish that I started earlier. You know, and if you could start in your early 20s, you're gonna be better set up. Like I said to you guys before, it takes about 12 years on average to become a millionaire, or for a business owner to have a successful business, which they valued at like around about $1 million valuation. 12 years is a long time. So if you start at 20, the average person is going to walk away as a millionaire or a successful business owner, or whatever they're doing in their industry. Maybe it's your 9-to-5 job, but you started early and you'll become successful in that. But they'll be successful by 32. And if you're 20 years old, 32 sounds old as fuck, right, guys? You sat there thinking, I don't want to be 32 and rich, I want money now. When you get to, let's say, my age, 28, you look at 32 and you think, God, that's so young. That is so young. And I know when I'm 40 years old, I look back and think, oh my God, 32 was a baby. If I had had that perfect life at 32, like, you'd always look back, and at 50, you'll be like, God, 32 would have been magical. Like, you might even be grateful you didn't have money at 32, because you might have felt like you were more of a child back then. You would have fucked it all up. But it's funny what each decade does. You know, you get to the end of your 20s and you're just thinking completely differently to what you did at the start, which I'll get to later. But yeah, start as early as possible, guys, because... And it's a hard one, because if you don't know it, then you don't know it. Like Ty Lopez always used to say, it's not what you don't know that'll hurt you, it's what you don't know that'll hurt you. So basically, not knowing the answer isn't what's messing you up. It's not knowing that there is even an answer, or not knowing that there's even a question to answer. That's what messes you up, guys. So, like, I didn't know when I was younger that books could be read for entrepreneurship, you know, to help you achieve success. I thought they were all fictional, Roald Dahl, Harry Potter, that sort of shit. When I found out that they could be used for success, I just, oh my God, you know, and I started reading them. But without even knowing that at the start, it was messing me up. It was holding me back in life. But I didn't know what I don't know. So, you know, but the earlier that you start and you start asking those questions, and that's a mindset thing. So the earlier you start is a mindset thing. It's just thinking, I want to be successful. I want money. Let me look into this. Okay, now you know. You know, you don't know all the answers. But you're asking the right questions. Once you ask the right questions, you're on the route. So like, what age do men peak at? I started searching all of this stuff at like 18, 19 years old. So by the time I got to like 2021, I was really in a good mindset of, let's start a business, let's push forward, let's do stuff. And it's just that the earlier that your mind clicks into gear, which I'll get to in a minute as well, which is kind of uncontrollable, but if you're watching this video, I guess you got there. So that's a good thing. The second one is avoid financial waste. what a lot of people do, and I've made videos on this before about cultures. So black culture, white culture, Asian culture, it's the three I'm most familiar with because I've had a lot of people from those cultures in my life. A lot of black guys, like I've said before, spend a lot of money on women, white guy and materialistic things, especially in the 20s. A lot of white guys, alcohol, nights out, you know, they always say drunk as a white boy wasted. There's a song that says that. We're awful for it. And I used to do it when I was young. I was like 18. I'd spend like £200-300 on champagne, cheap champagne, or some shit like £25 a bottle stuff. I thought I was a baller. And I'd spend like £200-300 in a night. You're like, what the hell am I doing? You know, and that was every weekend. Every Saturday night, you go out, you spend £200-300, come back, earn your money again. And the amount of financial waste is unbelievable. You know, the amount of games that come out on like an Xbox or a PlayStation and you go and spend like 30-40 quid. Another one comes out next month, 40 quid. Like the amount of wrestling games and Madden and NBA and FIFA and all these fucking things that I bought. And I'm like, God, you only need like, and now it's just Call of Duty and FIFA and stuff like that. You know, people just play 1 or 2 games. But back then, we would spend thousands. We would spend thousands over the period of like 5 years on Xbox games and accessories and extra shit for it. And controllers break in and you get your Xbox chipped or something. Like, it's so much financial waste that comes from it. And a lot of that comes from women, which we'll get to in a minute. So the next one is stay debt-free. Now, the reason you want to stay debt-free, and believe me, guys, this is coming from somebody who knows. I was living in Toronto. I became pretty successful. My business was making good money. I had spare cash. I was so young that I thought it would be a good idea to be very impatient. And instead of waiting 3 to 4 months to earn that money, I knew that our trip was coming to an end. So I went and took 2 giant loans. Use those loans plus the money I had to push the business forward quicker, thinking if I invest it all, it will just fire back, Super Bowl, silver bullet type stuff. Real Hail Mary punt. And then my business, long story if you don't know, got deleted. None of the content existed anymore. My rankings fell, everything. You know, I couldn't get the brand deals, as I spoke about before in a previous video, that I used to get. And all that money dried up. So now I've got these 2 loans, but no money to pay them off. So I had to go back into the 9-to-5 workplace to pay everything off, which was shit. And it just held me back. It probably added 3 years to my journey, I would say. Yeah, I would say 2.5, 3 years to my journey. You know, if it didn't get deleted, it would have been different. But just take it, like I could have easily climbed back on that horse if I didn't have those debts to pay off. But they forced me to go and do a job I didn't want to do, to pay off some debts, to get back to normal, to build the business again. And and I'm okay now, but it was a shit show for a while, and kind of trying to fast track stuff, and it's just not the best way to do it. And a lot of guys do it with uni loans. Forget all of that. Personal loans, forget all of that. If you want to buy a car and you get it on finance, just forget all of that. Just stay as debt free as possible. Everybody thinks that the more money you earn, the more successful you're going to be. Generally, as a rule of thumb, you're going to be more successful, but the real money comes from saving. The real money comes from saving, because a guy who earns $200,000 a year working at a bank, but spends, because after tax, that's probably $130,000 a year that he's actually taking home. If he spends $120,000 a year on lifestyle, enjoying himself, holidays, whatever, yeah, he's gonna have a better life than somebody who earns $40,000 a year. But if that person who earns $40,000 a year after tax has got, I don't know, $32,000 and manages to save 15, 16 of it, they're richer than that other person. That other person could make a shit ton of money, and save everything for a year and then be well ahead of them. But it's more about the money that you save than the money that you earn. Your bills really decide where you're going to go in life. Now, the next one is stay single as long as possible. And this is nothing against women. I would actually advise, if I was doing First Woman, I'd advise the same to women. I would say stay single, work on yourself. Relationships aren't everything, guys. I saw Love Island was on last night. I wanted to watch an episode of Family Guy. I thought it'd be nice to have a 1 hour to myself for the first time in months. And on the same channel was Love Island America. It was just finishing up, right? And I was thinking, God, some people believe that relationships are everything, that they run the world. Like, everybody's so dedicated to finding the one, or the next one. There's a rebound. Oh, I need to get laid. I need to, forget all of that. Forget all of that. I honestly think as a man, you should go throughout your 20s very aloof towards sex and relationships and stuff, and just kind of take it when it lands on your lap. You know, as long as the person's attractive, but as long as you find them attractive, should I say, that's very, it's a matter of perspective, isn't it, to each person. But you should stay away from all of that as much as possible, like as in don't chase it, don't actively go after it, don't actively try and find a girlfriend, don't actively try and find sex, don't actively go to a club to get laid. Let it come to you. If you end up in an environment and you're working on yourself, you're focused on your business, you're in the gym, and a woman approaches you and starts talking to you, then fair enough. You know, maybe you could sleep with her, maybe you can have a date or whatever, like that stuff happens. But I would recommend staying as single as long as possible, because that extra time and money, and the other one is mental waste. There's a lot of mental waste that goes into relationships where you talk about garbage. You just talk about shit. And look, I'm not speaking from experience here. I'm not talking about anybody in particular, but you will do a lot of stuff that doesn't matter. Like moving into a new home and talking for 2.5 hours about the new sofa you're going to buy, or going shopping for a new sofa and a lampshade and a carpet, and it takes 3 weekends to decide which one you want, and 17 hours at work on your lunch break of checking out different carpets, and that one's nice, what do you think of this one, what do you think? You don't need that, guys. That's a lot of mental waste, a lot of time wasted, like I said, money wasted. You want to focus on yourself during this time period. Being single does that perfectly. And also, young relationships never work, because two people get together, let's say at 20 years old. By 30, you could be completely different people, and you started off like this, and instead of moving parallel with one another, two options. You outperform them, you become super successful, they don't, or you outgrow them, doesn't work. Or they start liking other things. Like you meet each other in a club and you like getting drunk and going out and getting fucked up and going home and having sloppy drunk sex. Perfect for your 20s. You get to your 30s and, you might grow apart. That person starts preferring the gym and staying in on a Saturday night. That person still enjoys that lifestyle where you met. And that's when people are like, oh, you're different, you've changed, you're not the same. It's like, yeah, people grow. So if anything, more quality relationships will come in your 30s and later anyway. I recommend 40, but that's for another video. The next one is get in the gym. So it's easy to say when you're young, oh, it's okay, I'm young, I'll always be in shape. Like I know plenty of people who have got 8-packs and they're like 25 years old and they drink like fish. They have terrible diets, they're just eating shit all day, they're sat around not really doing a lot, but they're in shape. Or they look good enough. Like their faces, they're still getting laid. Women still want them, so to speak. And they're like, yeah, well, I'll do that when I'm older. As soon as I start getting a belly, I'll get in the gym. But that's a very defensive mindset. You want an attack mindset. You want the attacker's advantage, as the book says. But check that one out, The Attacker's Advantage. Very good book. But it should be more of a lifestyle book, I think. It's made for business. But the attacker's advantage in terms of fitness, it's like, okay, you've got this frame, you've got these decent genetics, you're young, you're in a decent position. You start hitting the gym at 20 like a lunatic. By 30, you're going to have perfect body. You're going to have everything that you want. It's a compound effect. All of that is going to add up to give you what you want at 30. But if you wait until you're 30 and say, okay, now I'm 30, I'm going to hit the gym. Like I said, it's a defensive mindset. You're just protecting what you have. You're maintaining rather than chasing after the next level. So you're here at 25, you've got a very nice body. Okay, let's get it better. It's good, but let's go to great. It's great, but let's go to incredible. It's incredible, let's go to perfect. Instead of just being like, well, it's above average, I'm not fat. Yeah, it's fine, I'll wait till I'm 30. It's very defensive, like I said. So as early as you can get in the gym, start doing compounds, start watching videos of the top level fitness guys. Because honestly, guys, it makes life so easy when you're a big, strong man with good shape. Everything falls into line. Me and Steve spoke about this. Other guys respect you more. Women want you. Whether you want women to like you just because your body, whatever, or other men to respect you just because your body, it can't hurt, can it? It's an extra bonus. It's something else you don't have to worry about, right? And it's good for health as well. Let's not lie about that. The next one is test and fail. So the earlier that you start, like I said, the better. But you wanna fuck up more often. You want to fuck up as much as possible. Don't try to, but do as much as possible. Test, experiment, get creative. If something is a terrible idea to everybody else, but a good one to you, try it, do it. At 40, that might be a reason to listen to them. But by failing, you learn so much, and it makes you a better entrepreneur, business person, employee, whatever it might be that you do, investor. But test as much as possible. Like I've had a decent amount of successes, but probably 10 times more failures. And I was always optimistic about them working. I always thought they would work. When they didn't, okay, next one, I'll move on. But now, sat here at 28, I look back and I think, God, that thing that I did when I was 21, when I wrote ebooks and thought they'd make 30 grand a month and they didn't, I learned so much from writing them. And it might not be about, how to write, how to, upload on Amazon and stuff like that. It was more stuff like discipline and focus and time management. Like I had to get 3 hours per day where I sat and I wrote and I proofread, and I had to structure chapters, and I had to think about certain concepts, and that's the skills it gave me. And yeah, it failed, but it brought me to where I am today in so many words. And if you do that enough, look, you're going to grow quicker. The quicker you fail, the quicker you grow. So test and fail, guys. Next one is lose your ego. We've all got giant egos, and I lost mine during depression and when my hair fell out. So I was very much one of those good-looking guys when I was growing up, getting all the girls, thought that life was all about just pulling women and having fun, and didn't really know what I was going to do in life. Just had like a destructive mindset. Every time something was going well, I'd destroy it and just think, I'll be the dark, mischievous guy. Didn't really work too well until, when I started working on businesses and stuff, it was better. But at like 16 to probably like 20, in a couple months in my early 20s, I was before I started my business, I was still kind of doing that stuff. But when I got depression and my hair fell out properly when I shaved it and stuff at like 24, 25, I really felt so good. To know that you don't have to be the best at everything. To know that it's okay to fuck up. To know that there's people that are better than you, better looking than you, stronger than you. Just, go to a big city and go and see all that. Like it's nice. It's a nice feeling. Because as soon as you drop your ego, you become very dangerous, because you can't be hurt as easily, and you start seeing things for what they really are instead of fooling yourself and running like when horses have blinkers on. And they're just running straight forward and they can't see what's around them. They just focus on this one thing. That's what an ego does to you. Once you lose that ego, you can see everything. You can see the bigger picture. And it's very much like the IKEA effect. When you build something yourself, you perceive it as being better than what it is. When you lose your ego, you go, okay, that's terrible. Somebody told me it was terrible. Okay, 100 people told me it was terrible. 1,000 people. Okay, I'm starting to believe this is terrible. Whereas somebody with an ego would, sit there and be like, these haters, I hate that shit. When people say, oh, they don't like what I'm doing, everyone said it was rubbish, these haters won't bring me down. It's like, that could be constructive feedback. That could be a good thing. Like, maybe it is rubbish. Have you ever thought of that? Not everyone's a hater. Maybe some people are just honest. Lose your ego. You'll start seeing things better. The next one is to become more self-aware. And I say this because a lot of guys want to live up to expectations. So a lot of guys say, like I said the other day, I said in a couple of videos that I'd rather go and watch a show at the theatre than get drunk with the boys now. I became self-aware. I understood myself better. I now appreciate what type of person I am. I would rather film a video project than go and sleep with a supermodel. I've always said I don't want to win the lottery. I don't want to win the lottery, whatever you want to call it, because I want that journey to success. I enjoy that. I know that about myself now. I know that I like being in the trenches, in the grind. I know that I like building up to that point. And you realize all these things about yourself and you become self-aware. And the good thing about that is, you can give yourself direction, number one, but number two, you know your strengths and weaknesses. And especially in your 20s as well, you know what you want to do. So instead of being a yes man, yeah, I'll do it, I'll do that. You grow a backbone when you're self-aware and you're like, no, I don't want to do that because I don't like it. I want to protect my time which we'll get to later, but I want to protect my time and go and do something for me. I don't want to do that. I don't like doing that anymore. I've moved past that. I'm going to move on. Stuff like that. It's very, very nice for you. On the ego thing as well before and being self-aware, I just want to add in, because I forgot, is relationships as well. Knowing that when relationships end, it's not a personal attack. It is, once you drop your ego, you go, okay, things They're just doing what's best for them. I'm doing what's best for me. You know, that's another nice touch to do in your 20s, is to become emotionally intelligent and to be like, that person has things they want to achieve. Maybe this wasn't optimal for them. Maybe it's not optimal for me. They will find someone else. I will find someone else. Things will move forwards. You know, I'm not the only person in the world. I'm sure there's somebody out there who is better for them than me. Having something like that is great as well, guys. I thought I'd better add that. So developing a long-term mindset. So developing a long-term mindset is, a lot of people go into their 20s and they're kind of thinking about how successful they're going to be, and they're going to be in Paris with a Lamborghini. I know I did this, a model on one arm, a champagne bottle in the other. And they're 20 and they're like, oh, 25 is years away. By 25, we're going to be fucking billionaires. Like, they're so long away. They get there and they're like, oh shit, didn't really figure out. You know, that success line that I thought looked like that, it looks like this. And it goes back to the start. And it goes back to the start a couple times in a row. And people need to understand that the quicker you can develop this, the better. And I'm not knocking anybody, because barely anybody has this mindset in their 20s in general, never mind early 20s. But let's say you're 25 and you're looking at 30 now and you're going, okay, by 30, I want to be a multi-millionaire, life sorted, everything I've ever wanted. It's probably not going to happen. Number one, it's a short amount of time. And number two, that short mindset is going to force you to make shittier decisions, because you're not thinking for the long term, which is always usually the better decision. Whichever one is the longer term decision, which is best for the longer term, for the company, for you, for whatever, you know, like hitting the gym in your 20s to be in shape for your 30s so you don't have health problems. It's always the better decision. Taking steroids in your 20s, might get to 40 and you've got back problems and kidney issues, and you know, the long-term stuff always works better. So develop a long-term mindset and start thinking, okay, if I'm 21 today, 25 today, and I'm starting a business, let's target 36. Let's say 38. Let's say by 40, I want to be in this position. Like, start planning 20 years ahead, 15 years ahead, 10 years minimum. It's always 10 years minimum. That's what I've got right now, is a 10-year plan. I'm looking at, I wrote it down at like 26. And 26 to 36, I was like, male advantage, perfect year. If you're familiar with my male advantage concept. If not, go and watch it on the channel. It's a good concept. But I look at that age, 36, and look, I'm not bothered if I don't hit it by then. I want to hit it, but I could be 42. It doesn't matter. I'll still be in shape. So I believe, because I'm working on myself. But you get to 36, and it's like, okay, that was a 10-year plan. You know, that was a massive chunk of time that I put in, and I made some good long-term decisions for the long-term periods of my life, and it all worked out. So, you know, thinking long-term is an absolute game changer, guys. Now, the next one is becoming selfish with your time. So when you're in your 20s, everybody wants you. Women want you, your friends want you, you know, everybody wants to spend time with you. There's festivals, there's events, there's PlayStations, Xboxes, there's Netflix, there's so much stuff that you want to do. There's nights out, parties, whatever. You get invited to everything and you want to do everything. You want to try it all. You cannot please everybody, although we all try. You know, I was playing football, I was doing 3 jobs, I was dating girls, I was messaging girls, I was playing on the Xbox with my boys, I was going out getting drunk with the boys, I was going on lads holidays, even though I didn't have the money, because I was like, I just want to go with the boys. Be selfish with your time. You, like I said, you cannot please everybody. So once 20 to 30 is a giant chunk, guys. It's 10 years, okay? If you used all of that time to grow, to build yourself, you will get to 30 and you will be in one hell of a position. Now, most people can't just sit in for 10 years like Bill Gates did and dedicate 10 years completely to just building themselves. You know, but the more of that you can use, the more of that time that you can use, the better. So I would say by the time I hit 30, I'd say I probably used 60%, maybe 70% now as it tails off towards 30 because I'm doing so many more hours, 70% of my time during my 20s wisely. I'd say there was a small portion where I was kind of fucking around, wasting time. You know, I watched a little bit too much TV here. I played too much Xbox here. Like, during that 10-year period, there's probably 70% of the time that I used effectively. Now, the reason that makes me happy is because I'd say the average person uses 5 to 10%, maybe 5, probably 5 to be honest. They use 5% of it effectively, and that 5% is probably just being in the workplace, and maybe another 5% for being in the gym. But other than that, very little of their 20s actually went towards building their life and being an effective 10-year period. So they're going to struggle moving forward. So that 70% that I used, I'm pretty happy with. But I was I'm still am very selfish with my time, but I've had at least 2-3 year periods where I barely saw anybody. I kind of just sat and worked on my business, stayed away from women. I've had at least 1 or 2 years where I didn't have sex at all on purpose. Kind of sounds like an incel, but I did it on purpose to stay away from women, to dedicate to my business, and went down that kind of like Tesla ethos, that Tesla mindset, where he transmutated sexual energy and put it into a business, because I was like, well, what's the point? I'm not going to exactly get married yet. I don't want kids or anything yet. I'm like 40. I was like, let's just build my own business and take care of my own life. So I was very selfish with my time, and I'm happy for that. So the next one is the progression bias and maturing quickly. So I explain what the progression bias is. The progression bias is when you believe what you want right now is what you'll want in the future, or what you'll want for the rest of your life, or a certain time slot. So many guys at 20 will want to have sex every night of the week, go out on weekends, drink with the boys, watch football, sports, whatever it might be, buy this car, and you'd say to them, look, stay in. Some guy said it to me, big, bold army guy. When I was younger, I was at a house party and he was dating the guy's mum. And he stopped me and he was like, you've got some potential. He was like, you're a bit smarter. He was like, you've got a good mindset. He was like, just forget about all these women. He was like, these women will always be here. He said, dedicate yourself to, if you're good at sports, dedicate yourself to it. You can make a career. He said, or dedicate yourself to business or something. Start your own business. Start thinking about this shit now. Get your qualifications, whatever it is. He said, but forget about women. He said, women will always be there. The opportunity and to be free and have no ties and develop yourself and move forward, it won't always be there. And I was like, yeah, great advice. Yeah, well, who's this weirdo? Give me another drink and, show me where the women are. It wasn't until I turned like 20, 21 years old, I was like, fuck, that guy was right. That guy was bang on. And this, it wasn't bad because it was only 4 years earlier that he told me, it could have been worse. I could have been like 35 and think, fuck, he was so right. So I was happy about that. But the progression bias, it's funny how back then I was like, what is he talking about? I want women. I want alcohol. I was drinking at like 14 to be honest, but at 16 I was drinking a lot. And I was sitting there and I was thinking, I want all these women. I want alcohol. I want parties. I want my friends. I want to enjoy my life. And now at 28, I look back just 12 years later and I'm like, God, I wouldn't want that at all. If somebody said to me that your life from now on is going to be sleeping with women, getting drunk and living the party life, I'd be like, God, how did I end up down that route? That's like my worst ever life. Like I'd much rather just be working on my business and dating like one beautiful, classy woman and taking her out for like 2, 3, 4, 5 dates, and then kind of going back to my own space and time and just getting on with what I want to do, or like taking her on a trip for a week somewhere and, and then going back to my own life and being selfish again and just kind of segregating stuff like that. But there's that progression bias. What you're thinking, what you wanted when you were young is what you'll want in the future, and it just isn't, guys. It just changes. And this is why I say mature quickly, and you have to have that self-awareness, like I said earlier. And the guys who have this mentality are fucking dangerous. Like I'm sat here now at 28 and I'm thinking, but what will I want at 40? That's dangerous. That's dangerous. That's massively dangerous. And if you're 20 years old now and you're thinking, I want women, alcohol, cars, whatever, all this shit, I'll spend my money on this and I'll get my dick sucked. And if you can change that and sit there at 20 and think, what will 36-year-old me want? Let's look around at other men that are 36. What do they want out of life? Like, what are they targeting? What are they going for? What is Chris? He's an entrepreneur. He's ambitious. What is he targeting? What is he aiming for? I predict I'll probably be in a similar situation to him. I want similar things to him. He has similar traits to me. We find another guy. He's, who I model myself on or I want to be and whatever. If you can do that in your 20s, your early 20s especially, and you can start thinking, okay, that's who I'm going to want to be in the future. Let's start working towards that now, even though it's not particularly what I want right now, and make those sacrifices. When that time comes around, you'll really thank yourself. You'll really thank yourself. Like on a smaller scale, this isn't what I'd want, but I know a lot of people a lot of women actually, who all they ever wanted was a house, a husband and a family. Okay, fair enough. That's what they wanted, all right? They wanted to own their own property. They left school at 16. Everybody's laughing at them, no grades, no ambition, whatnot. You're not going to uni or sixth form or whatever, college. They went and got a job. They worked their way up. It's not the best job in the world now, but they've still worked their way up to a decent point. And they managed to save something like 120,000, 130,000 in that time frame that everyone else was at uni, whatever. Immediately, they went and bought their own property, paid it off in full, and then they have their own property. They don't have a mortgage, they have their own property, paid off in full. They met a husband along the way, married, whatever, had 2 kids, and they'll be like 25 years old with their dream life. And I'm not saying that's the route to take. I actually say the opposite for most men. But some women that I grew up at school with, they knew their plans early on. They had that progression bias. Everyone was out partying. They were like, I'd rather work and do overtime because I know by 25 I'll have my husband, my house, and my kids, and I'll be happy. And that was their plan, and they completed it. And if you guys are looking at becoming business owners or whatever, or starting something great, and you're thinking long term, using that progression bias to be like, okay, I want to go out and get drunk and fuck that girl over there because she's beautiful. But I know in 10 years' time, she probably won't look like that anymore, number one. That club will probably be closed down. I'll be in terrible shape. And, nothing's going to go the way that I want it to have gone. Whereas if I stay in tonight, if I invest, if I work on my business, I get up early tomorrow, I hit the gym, all these moments, they compound to create the you that you want to be in the future. And the quicker you can mature, the better. And I actually found that people from cities, big cities with big populations, they mature a lot quicker because they're exposed to all these elements. So you grow up in a small town, nobody around you is rich. Everybody just wants to have they're baby factories. A lot of these places are baby factories. Where I grew up, it was exactly the same. Whereas when I went to Toronto, a couple, days in Paris and that, and I lived in London, all you're ever seeing is successful people. Like, it took me like 2 months to see my first Bugatti Veyron, and you go, oh shit, like this stuff exists. Now, imagine if you were 20 years old and you're seeing all of this, you're going to mature a lot quicker because you're going to think, well, I know it can be achieved. You're probably going to be exposed to a better life. You're going to know that it's available. So your mind, like I said at the start, it wakes up quicker. It's not what you don't know that'll hurt you. It's what you don't know that'll hurt you. These people in bigger cities, and they're exposed to stuff, they ask these questions a lot quicker because they're forced to. They're seeing it all the time. So their minds, they grow quicker. They become more curious. And my final one, maybe the most important, is to leave nothing to regret. Now, it's very cliche, but the last thing you want to do, guys, is get to, like, even 30 years old. 30 years old is massively recoverable. If you were 35 years old and you're like, I want to start a business, have a great life, you could be 45 with the perfect life and feel young as hell and be like, that was a great life. I really did what I was supposed to do. But I think even that person would agree that they wish they started in their 20s. And nobody wants to get to 30 and be like, I wasted 10 years. Nobody wants to get to 40 and think, I started a business when I was 30, I got to 40 and I'm successful, but fuck, I could have been doing this at 20. Like, I wasted, could have been doing this a lot earlier. I could be in the same position I'm in now, but 30 years old and 10 years ahead of this current era. So I'm positioned even better, if that makes sense. Kind of before the industry disruption or something like that. And you don't want to have that regret. You don't want to have a child with the wrong woman because you were just too drunk and fueled on testosterone that you couldn't pull out. And you're like, shit, now I've got this. Now I'm kind of married with 2 kids and my ambition was actually to become a fitness influencer. Like, you're going to regret if you don't do it. And living with regret, dying with regret, it's just not nice, guys. So take massive risks, be selfish. Don't necessarily do the things that make you happiest as well. People always say, do what makes you happy. What would make most people happy is, getting married, having kids, having sex all day, getting drunk. Like, making me happy, I'd go and message my friends right now and say, let's all go on holiday. It's raining outside. I fucking hate it. Let's all go to Barcelona, get drunk and sleep with Spanish girls. That would probably make you a lot happier than what you're doing right now, but don't regret what could be. So, stay away from, like I said, the stuff that might make you happy. So I've turned down multiple relationships and chances to get married and have kids so that I could eventually have the life that I want because of the progression bias. And I know when I get to that stage, when I'm like 36, 40 years old, whatever, I'll sit there and I'll be like, good decision. Good decision for me, because there will always be other women, but time just keeps going. There will always be other opportunities, but time keeps going. Like, stuff does pop back around. There will always be a new model of car that you can buy. There will always be a new, better house that you'll find when you got more money, that you're like, okay, that was actually my dream house. Glad I didn't get that mortgage now. There'll always be opportunities in the future, guys. And I think living with regret in a, let's say, a business sense or an ambition sense or dream life or life goal sense, that's way worse. That's way worse than living with regret over, put it this way, people always say, oh, the woman that got away. She's only the woman that got away because your life isn't where it needs to be, so she's still on a pedestal. If you're, let's say a guy's 40 years old and he's like, oh, the girl that got away when I was 28, I missed her, oh fuck, she was perfect, I should have wifed her, she was beautiful. If you rise up to multi-millionaire level, you're in fantastic shape, massively successful entrepreneur, dresses well, great connections, hosts fucking yearly parties or something, and you start dating models and they're beautiful and they got great personalities, she will not be the woman that got away anymore. She'll just be one extra. Things are only the one that got away when you have a scarcity mindset, because you can't get any more of that. So when people are saying, oh, I should have invested that 50 grand when I was young, but I spent it on a car and a house. Yeah, you're right. Number one, you're right. But if you were then to work your balls off and become a multimillionaire, that 50 grand, you wouldn't blame it anymore, would you? Because you'd be like, well, I'm so rich, it doesn't matter. It's peanut change to me. And that's what you can't regret, guys. So the whole thing about regretting the woman that got away and all this shit, and I should have married her, that's what you see in Hollywood films. The real regret comes from not doing what you want to do to make yourself the man that you want to be. So I'll leave you with that, guys. Hope you enjoyed this. Went a little bit deep on this one, but I believe that's what, if I could go back and tell my 20-year-old self all of this and put the mind that I have now into that person, I think I'd probably be 5 years ahead of where I am now, which is a scary prospect. Scary prospect, because I think in 5 years, by 33, I truly believe streaming platform will be built. And I truly believe that streaming platform is going to make something like 10 million per month when it's at its peak, maybe even more. But yeah, that's it from me, guys. So I hope you enjoyed the content, and I'll see you soon.